17th century English aristocrats planted grass on the most visible parts of their properties because they wanted people to know they were wealthy enough to waste land instead of using it for crops. The garden lawn began life as an opulent symbol of status and extravagance for the frivolous sports and hobbies of the privileged elite that evolved into a cultural icon of the British Empire. A quintessentially British invention reflecting an individual, family or institution's ability to exert order, uniformity and control over nature. The Middle Ages English word lawn originally referred to a glade or opening in the woods. It evolved into a term to describe artificial stretches of land that resembled such glades. Some of the first artificial lawns were the grasslands around medieval castles in France and Britain, which were kept clear of trees so guards had an unobstructed view of approaching, perhaps hostile, visitors. The term also referred to the village commons, the meadows shared or held in common where villagers could graze their sheep and cattle. In the 16th century Renaissance, lawns were deliberately cultivated by the wealthy in both France and England, though they were more likely planted with chamomile or thyme than grass. Closely cut grass lawns first emerged in 17th century England at the homes of large, wealthy aristocratic landowners. A classic visual folly and extravagance, as their upkeep and maintenance alone required many hands to scythe and weed the grass. For the next 200 years, lawns established themselves as the aesthetic of the British elite, which saw the rise of grass playing fields in boarding schools and universities across the country for sports like tennis, rugby, cricket, golf and football. It's still a popular punishment in English boarding schools to make young boys cut the cricket pitch grass with scissors to 1 centimetre in length for an hour or two when they have misbehaved. In 1830, Edwin Beard Budding invented the lawnmower. With that invention, which became perfected over the next decade, came the advent of middle-class lawns. Without the need for skilled labour to cut the lawn, average people could aspire to this little plot of manicured land in their homes, and lawns became commonplace. So the manufacturing of lawnmowers and its marketing campaigns persuaded an aspiring, booming middle class to copy the lifestyles of aristocrats. A frightening reminder of the power of advertising and marketing to manipulate behaviour and culture in order for a few people to make vast sums of money. By 1871, the little brother of lawnmowers, chemical fertilizers, was also becoming a booming new industry, and in that year there were about 80 factories making superphosphate fertilizers being shipped round the world for agriculture and gardening. Sales of sporting equipment for the middle class to join in the hobbies of the aristocrats was also booming, and grass playing fields sprung up everywhere to conveniently fulfill these new desires. This spawned a vibrant economy in sporting events and the ensuing gambling which was commonplace then, and the sports industry has grown exponentially worldwide to become the economic fountain of abundance we know today. The British lawn became a cultural symbol of pride for an Englishman to have a well-kept lawn with no weeds, short grass and ideally stripes. Lawns like British gardening were the style of the colonisers. British gardening and landscaping defined an aesthetic of wealth and control. And what better way to maintain order and control than over a round of golf with industry leaders, one of the upper class's favourite hobbies that involves a lot of strolling about extensive grass lawns and country estate style landscaping. Golf mutated out of Scotland, where grass grows easily in its wet climate, to be imposed into landscapes with unsympathetic climates across the world, which demand huge amounts of water, fertilizer, pesticide and manpower, while destroying local ecosystems and biodiversity along the way. Golf courses, like the garden lawn, reflect the British Empire's intention to cultivate an establishment of conformity and order in the minds and cultures of the people to sustain vast industries and economies. Even to this day, an Englishman's house is his castle, and every castle must have a lawn, which they normally name after their favourite sports team stadium, or Wembley, the home ground of the English football team. An ordered, tidy garden was a reflection of an ordered, tidy person, and forgetting to cut the grass triggers fears of criticism and disapproval. Lawns were first imported to America by the British colonizing elite. and the fashion was continued by its founding fathers. George Washington, whose lawns were admired by visiting Brits, were also maintained by slaves on his Mount Vernon estate, where over 300 slaves lived and worked during his lifetime. In Britain and America during the 19th century's Industrial Revolution, as cities grew and became increasingly polluted and overcrowded, city beautification campaigns became common, and the park was born. This term had originally referred to the acres of land with their carefully tended trees around wealthy, stately English homes. Now it took on a new social meaning in urban cities in Britain and the new democratic America. Parks became a public area characterized by landscaped lawns, trees, shrubbery and water, with details like fountains, streams, ponds and lakes, all features lifted from British estate grounds of the wealthy landowners. Redefined and democratized, the park became ubiquitous in Britain and North America. Even the smallest town has its park, a block or two devoted to grass, trees, a sandbox and a swing set, 2 benches, a picnic table and a water fountain. If all of these items were removed, save the first, grass, it would still be recognizable as a park. Lawns migrated from the civic center into North America's backyard through Frederick Olmsted, also known as the American father of landscape architecture, who planned New York City's Central Park in the 1850s, another glorious reproduction of an English aristocrat's country estate. He also planned parks in Boston, Montreal and elsewhere. Olmsted not only popularized the use of meadows in public parks, but he also designed suburbs in which each residential home sported a lawn. In the middle of the 20th century, the tone for the popularization of the lawn was set in Levittown, one of the first cookie-cutter affordable dwelling suburbs, built between 1948 and 1952 by Abraham Levitt and his sons William and Alfred on Long Island. This was the first American suburb to include lawns already in place when the first tenants took possession. Abraham Levitt and his sons also built subdivisions in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Cape Cod and Puerto Rico. They pioneered the established lawn, which residents were required to keep up but forbidden to fence in. The importance of a neat, weed-free, closely shorn lawn was promoted intensely in the newsletters that went out to all homeowners in these subdivisions, along with lawn care advice on how to reach this ideal. And their model for suburbs with gardens it was obligatory to maintain was mimicked and replicated throughout the country. In the 50s, there was also a need for inexpensive housing to accommodate returning GIs and their young families. These were soldiers trained in neatness and obedience, and these were the conformist 50s, when everyone was on watch for signs of communism, which coincided with an economic boom that rolled on through the 1960s, confirming the world's headlong dive into consumerism. No longer would a lawnmower be repaired when it was broken. A new, bigger, more powerful, improved mower would replace it. The time of disposable, upgrading technology that appealed to our desires commoditized the lawn and the world of gardening into an economic powerhouse of infinitely improving products with an eager population ever ready to spend their disposable incomes on the latest fad. And our behavior hasn't changed, it's only become more aggressive. Lawned gardens with fashionable foreign flowers and plants sold en masse from garden centres have decimated local ecosystems and biodiversity. The land and wildlife has suffered decades of pollution from petrol-powered lawnmowers, leaf blowers and harmful chemical pesticides. Grass lawns are unsustainable monocultures which prevent biodiversity. They are high effort and require a lot of water, fertilizers and weed killers that pollute the environment, killing insects and birds. Bird numbers have fallen by over a third since 1970. That's a drop of 3 billion birds in the natural environment. Combined with a massive decline in bee and insect numbers, everyone needs to start doing their part to encourage biodiversity. It's time to end our infatuation with lawns and begin responsible gardening to heal and sustain our local ecosystems. Let your lawn grow wild like a natural meadow, or grow food, or both. We all live in bioregions that had healthy ecosystems before they were developed and populated. We all have a responsibility to learn about and care for these bioregions. Find out about the plants and fauna that naturally grow in your area, and plant local pollinator plants to feed the bees and insects. And if we can all begin to rewild our local areas, then we can really make a difference against climate change. So it's imperative that we act now before it's too late, and grow food, not lawns. Every year the Queen of England attends the Royal Chelsea Flower Show, the UK's most famous trade fair, held for 5 days each summer in London. A marketing bonanza for the commercial flower and garden industry, promoted with gusto by the country's head of state and the mainstream media. The objective of the garden industry is to make profits, not to protect the environment or improve biodiversity. And the flower show is a shop window for every aspect of commercial gardening, fully endorsed by the person with the highest status in the land, who has the most famous gardens and represents the peak of material aspirations, masquerading behind the genteel and ephemeral hobby of gardening and its seemingly earnest toils and accomplishments. This is multi-layered marketing at its most advanced, from perhaps the world's most established influencer. The Queen is the face of Britain, its monarchy and the English garden, some of the most successful brands in the history of marketing. And here she is selling you hybridized flowers and an aspirational lifestyle to benefit markets and economies. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and a comment and subscribe to the channel. And remember, it's time to plant trees and grow food, not lawns.